now let's talk about profit maximization for a monopoly. So they have the same production cost as we've talked about before. So they still have a marginal cost, ATC, AVC, AFC. They still have all those, and the shape of them are going to be the same. So the Nike check mark and the smiley faces for the ATC and the AVC. All right. And the reason they're the same is because it's a firm that is producing. They will have diminishing marginal productivity, so the costs are going to be decreasing and then increasing. That we still have. Okay, more output, costs will increase. Now, in perfect competition, we saw that the marginal revenue was the same as the price because the price stayed the same for the firm. Whatever the market was charging, that's what the firm was charging. So we couldn't change price. So therefore, every time we sold something, the marginal revenue was the same. All right. So the total revenue increased the same rate throughout. Now, as we saw with the monopoly, that's going to be different because they can charge a higher price or a lower price. That changes how much their marginal revenue is going to be. Now, remember, going back to what we talked about with the demand curve and the total revenue curve, marginal revenue is going to start off positive, but it's going to be decreasing and then eventually it's going to be negative, right? So a monopoly has to consider this when they're doing their pricing strategy. So basically their marginal revenue will change because their price changes. Now, going back to profit maximization, it's the same. Okay, MR equals MC. When your marginal revenue, how much money you're getting because you're selling one more of a product, is that same as the cost of that additional product, then you're good to go, right? You're maximizing your profits. The money you brought in is the same as the money it cost you, so you should stop. That is where you maximize your profits. If you have a situation where your marginal revenue is more than your marginal cost, that means you're making more money than it's costing you. So you should produce more. But if your marginal cost is more than your marginal revenue, it's costing you more to produce than what you actually sold it for. So therefore, you should decrease output, lower your cost, and this actually increases your marginal revenue. Because look, if you were to decrease your output here, so going from here to here, so decreasing output, you can see marginal revenue goes up. And so basically what happens is you're going to get to the point where they are equal. So profit max, the same with perfect competition, is the same here, MR equals MC. Now margin revenue is changing, so that is going to be different in terms of a graph, okay? So on the graph, it's going to look something like this. We will have our demand curve and then a marginal revenue curve, and then we'll have the marginal cost going through. So here on the graph, we can see how we have the marginal revenue decreasing and the marginal cost going up like this. It is not a horizontal line like perfect competition. So all we're going to look for is the intersection right there, where MR equals MC, the maximum possible profit. All right. So in the real world, a monopolist often doesn't have enough information to analyze its entire total revenue or total cost curves, but we do have enough information about how changing a small amount of output changes your revenue and changes your cost. So therefore, we're going to use margin revenue and marginal cost to find out where our profit maximization point is. Again, margin revenue is a downward sloping line, and it's downward sloping because of the elasticity. All right. So here's what a graph for a monopolist would look like. You have your price, you have your quantity, and they have the entire demand curve from the market. Okay? And then because the monopolist is the firm, we can start to put in the firm's information, such as the marginal revenue. Now the marginal revenue is going to look like this, a downward sloping line below price. And if you're wondering why below price, let's take a look. See how we have 1,100 and 1,000, 1,000 and 800? Your price is always more than the marginal revenue, okay? So therefore, we're going to put the marginal revenue curve below the price. And then you have your marginal cost coming through here, and then you'll have your ATC. And again, it's the same thing where you have your minimum ATC, the lowest point of the ATC, that's where you intersect on the marginal cost curve. So that stays the same. Now, in terms of actually drawing the profit area for a monopoly, what you need to do is you need to find out where your MR is equal to your MC. Okay, so that happens at this intersection where the MR is equal to the MC. Okay? So the next thing we need to do is find out, well, what is the quantity that they're producing? They're going to produce at this quantity right here. Okay, this is the profit max quantity. Monopolists will then determine the price. So think about it. They're going to say, okay, we can produce the most amount of profit at 50 t-shirts. Well, what's the most that they're willing to pay for 50 t-shirts? So then we'll go up to the demand curve to ask the consumers, hey, I have 50 shirts, what's the most amount you're going to pay for them? So we need to go to the demand curve to figure out the price. Okay, a lot of students will go directly over and to find the price, but that's not what that is. In fact, this point right here, that is where your marginal revenue is, and that's also where your marginal cost is. To find price, you have to go up to the demand curve. Now, in terms of the profit area, you will need to find your ATC, which happens right here. At this quantity, this line right here shows you all of the information. It shows you the price, shows you the ATC, and the MC, and the marginal revenue. So since your price is above your ATC, this entire area here is your profit region. Okay. So this is how a monopolist would maximize their profits. They find out where their MR equals MC, finds the quantity, and then finds the price. Okay, so the steps to find profit max right here. You make sure you have your demand curve, your MC, and your MR. You find out where the MR equals MC. You go straight down to find the quantity. You go straight up to the demand curve to find the price. You go to your ATC, and then you can draw the profits or the losses. Okay, so I'm going to illustrate all these steps for you. But basically, again, step 1, MR equals MC. Step 2 is finding the quantity. Step 3 would be finding the price. Okay, and then from there you can find your ATC. Okay, so again, I'll do that for you again so you can really see what happens. We're going to draw a firm earning profits again. It goes demand, MR, MC, and then ATC here. From there you can find your MR equals MC at this intersection. You find the quantity, which is the profit max quantity, MR equals MC. You'll go up to the demand curve to find the price, and then you can go to the ATC curve to find the ATC. Okay. All right. If they were earning losses, it's the same steps, except now if you're doing losses, your price is below your ATC. A monopoly could earn losses in the beginning, depending on what's happening in the market. Okay, so demand, MR, MC, ATC would be somewhere up here. And you would do the same steps. You would find out maximum profits here, MR equals MC, find the quantity, find the price, and then you would find the ATC way up here. So this area right here would be your losses. Okay. In terms of this, would they shut down? Remember, the shutdown rule is if your price is below your AVC. Okay, so in this case, your AVC would be like right here. So you would not shut down because this would be your AVC. So you would operate but at a loss. Going back to the losses example here, what could happen is a change in the market, such as an increase in consumers' income, or consumers have a higher preference for this, so that changes the demand curve, right? So we could shift the demand to the right, right? So we increase demand. By changing demand, all right, so because demand goes up, prices go up, so guess what happens to the marginal revenue? You're making more money now because of the higher prices, so your marginal revenue increases. So what we would do is draw a demand curve here, a new demand, and then we would draw a new marginal revenue curve. We would draw a new marginal revenue curve here, and then that intersects at the marginal cost at a different point. Okay. So essentially what we have here is when there's a change in demand, that changes prices, that changes marginal revenue, and that's going to impact your profit maximization point. Okay, so a firm that is earning losses could experience profits when there's a change in demand. But the pricing scheme goes back to finding the maximum profits, MR equals MC, and then finding the price from there. All right. Next thing we'll talk about is efficiency and figuring out is a monopoly efficient or not.